Hi, I'm Gina. Welcome to Sacred Woman, Sacred Tips. Today's YouTube is about self-love. Now, the thing with self-love is everybody thinks that they love themselves. Well, mostly they do. I know we all put ourselves down, but most people, if you ask them, they'll be like, yeah, of course I love myself. I'm not trying to commit suicide. I love my life. I want to be in the world. But just wanting to be in the world doesn't always qualify as self-love. And what I've come to realise when I went to give a workshop on self-love is that self-love is only really measured by the level of self-care you give yourself. And most people don't really do a lot of self-care. We get up, we jump out of bed, we get on with the next day. The first things we do, we go on our phones, we check the internet, we check our social media, we check our emails. We get on with the day and it's like, ugh, you know. Most Monday mornings, everyone's complaining. Most Sunday nights, everyone's complaining about Monday morning. All everyone can wait for is the weekend, is for Friday, so that they can have a break from their week. Everybody's rushing through life. I remember during last December when we were coming up to New Year's Eve and everybody was like, oh, thank goodness this year's over. Everybody's in a rush to move forward. And I made a comment in one of my statements, in one of my posts, saying, you know, everybody's rushing to finish the new year. You know, everyone's rushing through the week. Everyone's rushing to get to, you know, get the week done, out of order, out of sight. But you know what? The end is death. So where is everyone rushing to? And this is where I come back to the same topic about self-care. I used to say I love myself. I have self-love, and I didn't realise that I didn't really have a full hold on what self-love was. And what I was actually doing was living, I wouldn't say I was living a lie, because I believed it. It's not like I was purposely lying to myself, but it was superficial. It was a superficial layer of love, you know, because I'm quite confident and quite, you know, some would say loud or whatever, or as I like to say, a bit too much. It means you could come across as someone who's really full of themselves, loves themselves and this and the other, but really inside I didn't have a lot of self-love. And because the way I found out was by doing an audit of what was going on in my life and who was in my life and how I was being treated. And I realised that if I had true self-love, I wouldn't have been accepting a lot of the things that were going on in my life, and I wouldn't have been accepting the sort of friendships and relationships. I had a lot of narcissistic partnerships and friendships, and even I'd go to say some of my work, you know, people were like that too. And so I started to really look into self-love, you know, what is true self-love. And one of the things I believe is that you can't truly love someone until you've learned to love yourself, because in actual fact, how do you love someone if you don't love yourself? Because that means you don't actually have a real example of what it feels like to love yourself. If you experience true love for yourself, you can then experience true love for someone else. Otherwise, what you're doing is reinforcing the superficial experience of not really loving. Things that started to help me to love myself were truly looking at myself and being honest with myself, looking at my body, for example, and being loving towards my body, and thinking about what things were good for my body: sleep, diet, you know, exercise, those sort of things. And one thing I came to realise is the more self-care I gave myself, the more balanced I became. Because, for example, when you stop drinking excessive amounts of alcohol, when you stop partying excessively, when you start to get proper rest, when you start to drink a lot of water, healthy water, when you start to eat a healthy diet, when you start to cut out sugary products, because what people don't realize is that food has a very, very big impact on how you feel. And if you take care of your gut, everything else sort of falls into place. Your gut is like your second brain, I think I've heard it said, you know. It's like it's like your second heart even, because you know when you get butterflies and all that lot, there's so much that goes on in your gut that we don't really pay attention to. I know these big food companies know that, so what they do is they fill us up with loads of sugary, salty, processed foods that would give us fake highs and chemical imbalances and make us feel ill and lethargic and whatnot, and we'll think it's all about our life, but really it's because we're not putting the right nutrients into our gut in the first place. And you know, just having self-care practices, like for me, for one, when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is make up my bed. I think it's really important to get up, clear that energy of your sleep space, make your bed and leave everything, you know, nice. When I come home to a tidy home, I feel so much better than when I come home to the mess. I often won't start cooking until I've cleaned the kitchen, for example. And it's actually since I started living by myself that I started to really take up some really good practices of self-care. And I was able to stick to them because I wasn't being interrupted by whoever else was in the household. And you know, it's no secret, I was a teenage mother, so I've had children since I was a child, and so I've never really actually experienced life as an adult independently. So now that I am, this is where the real self-love has started to really kick in, and self-care, I would say. You know, we all say we love ourselves, but do we? What are the choices we make? You know, I joke about me, for example, my sleep. I don't need that much sleep. I can cope with about 5 hours, but sometimes I stay up a bit later, and I always wake up really early, like 4 or 5 in the morning. So I'll be falling asleep in the front room, and my friends or my children will be here, and they'll be like, why don't you go to bed? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. But I'm not fine. I'm tired. My body's saying I'm tired. I should go and rest in my bed. You know, people say they love to sleep, for example. People sleep and sleep and sleep. Sleeping is not necessarily resting. That's just your body shut down because it's exhausted. But you can actually rest really well with a lot less time. And I'm finding that now that I'm doing more self-care, I'm going to sleep tired, sleeping well, and waking up rested before my alarm, even though I still set an alarm because it's just a habit, I guess, and I don't want to make a mistake, but I always wake up before my alarm anyway. I also noticed that when I drink alcohol, I'm a bit more groggy. You know, I'm getting older now, so there's the perimenopause, which, to be fair, I've done all right with, apart from I get sometimes night sweats. And those night sweats occur mostly when I've had a drink. And it could even just be one glass of wine, and that's what will happen. Along with the moods, you know. If I've been really healthy all month and been quite focused on my diet and sleep and rest and all those things, I find that my periods aren't necessarily as painful. Still might be a little bit heavy, but not as bad. You know, and self-love is so important to everything that we do. So if you don't really make it a priority in your life to work out if you truly do love yourself, to look inside of yourself to see whether you do, and work on it, you could be doing yourself a disservice for decades, years. You know, it's about clearing negative energy. It's about bringing it up and letting it go. It's about making sure that your body's in an optimum space so that it can get rid of all those negative things. For example, I always like to use the example of, anyway, never mind that. I like to think about a bowl of water sitting on the side of a table and never changed, just sat there for weeks. Dust will go in it, insects might drop in it, all sorts of different things from the atmosphere will go into that water. It becomes stagnant, cloudy, smelly, horrible. That's how the energy sits with us, whether it's physical or emotional. And if you do not take the time to look into your self-care practices so that you can clear away those negative energies, for example, I do every day, I do a gratitude diary. I spend a few seconds, a few minutes just writing 5 things I was grateful for that day. I like to do it in the morning so I can look back on my day and say those 5 things. Ideally, you can do it on that, in that evening. Sometimes I do write on it in the same day, but always in the morning, I make sure that if I haven't completed it the night before, I'll complete what I was grateful for the day before. And that means that all through that day, I'm looking through 4 things that I'm going to put into my diary. Another thing is I do is a journal. I get all my stuff out, get all my queries for the day and things that puzzled me. I write about those and see if I can see the patterns and see what's going on and help my brain to work things out. Set intentions every day for what I want. Sometimes I set an intention of a word that I'd like to focus on for that day. Like sometimes my day word could be something like joy, for example. I want to have a joyous day, so I'll look for joy in things all the way. Another thing is to looking for one thing that I value about myself each day. I try to do this often as possible, and I've got a blog actually called 100 Days of Value, which I'm doing at the moment. If you'd like to follow that, let me know. And so those sort of things, and also keeping your space that you live in clear. Getting rid of all that energy, bringing it up, clearing it. If you don't find ways to clear this energy, it stays in you, stays in your body, stays stagnant, gets like that horrible bowl of water, and you get dis-ease in yourself. That's how people get illness, because it's stuff that's stuffed down. If you have people around you who have always been very critical, and you don't speak your truth, then you hold that energy here in your throat. And again, that's really stressful. I used to be such a person that would never speak up, and I held so much that in the end I ended up having thyroid problems. The doctor said they don't know how it happens. I know how it happens now, because it's energy. It's all energy. Everything is energy, and that's what you have to realize. Your body holds everything. It has memory for all of it. So that's why things like tapping is really good, because someone was explaining to me that you have certain points in your body where things are held. So when you work on tapping, you sort of tap that out, but you'd have to speak to someone who's experiencing that. I'm just making a quick summation, because I'm not practiced NFT specialist or therapist. And realizing that, I realized that I was being superficial as well when I was in a relationship where I was finding that I was often feeling very low and very insecure, being gaslighted, as in made to feel like my made to feel like my thoughts and my feelings were invalid, or I was thinking incorrectly, like I wasn't as if to say that observing someone treating you badly and then checking them on it and then being told that you're overreacting, that's gaslighting, because sometimes it's a very obvious act, and it's kind of, but you're expected to accept it, and when you do keep on accepting it, that is a little telltale sign that perhaps your self-love is lacking. Because when people love themselves, for one, when people love themselves, they don't treat people badly. But secondly, when people love themselves, they're quickly able to spot that the issue that's going on is to do with the other person and not them. So for me, self-love is the most important thing you can develop in yourself, and must develop in yourself in order to live a fulfilled life. I I do work with women to help them work through some of their old wounds and traumas so that they can see where they are maybe reliving scenarios in their subconscious that have told them things like they're not worthy, they're not whatever. You know, they're things that they're words that we use on ourselves on a daily basis that we don't even realize that we're doing it. You know, things like I'm sick and tired of blah blah blah, or I'm rubbish at this, that and the other. You know, these are all things that we say all the time. We have something like 80,000 words, thoughts that go through our head every day, and most of those are negative. So if you think just on that alone, then we are not really practicing self-love. Most of us are not practicing self-love. I think self-love is something that is really important and that you should actively try and practice every day, you know, a little bit every day. And that's why I like the one thing I value about myself. I like to find something I value about myself on a daily basis. I like to remind myself that I am beautiful and that I am worthy and that I deserve love. You know, I like to remind myself how powerful I am, how much of a creator I am, and how responsible I am for my own life and making sure I live a fantastic life. I no longer need to have a partner in order to validate who I am. But nor do I say I don't want a partner. No, that's not true. I'm just saying that you should already be whole before you meet somebody. You shouldn't need them to make you whole, because we don't walk around as half a human being. Having intentions, setting intentions for your life and your day is something that means that you are looking forward to your life. Not running away from the last week, but looking forward to your life and being present, you know, being present as often as possible instead of thinking, oh, I can't wait for this day to be over, this week to be over, or whatever it is. Be here now, you know. I'm here now with you and I'm in this experience. So yeah, what do you do? What are your things that you do to practice self-care? Because I believe the true measure of your self-love is in how well you care for yourself. Treat yourself like your best friend, you know, someone that you love and you really cherish. And think, every time you're going to make a decision, think about it like that. Like, would you let your friend drink excessive amounts of alcohol and be really sick? Would you let your friend eat really badly and know that that stuff is toxic for their system? Would you let your friend starve themselves to sleep? You know, just think about the things that you would love for someone who you really care about. And I actually think, maybe go one step further, think about yourself as your child. Because usually we kind of have peers that kind of do the same as us. Maybe think of yourself as your child. If you had a child and you were watching them, what would you want for them? And then put that onto yourself, you know? So yeah, that's the end of today's YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have a book club called Gina's Books Recommended by Gina. And what it is that I recommend books that I've used and read through my life to help me. I read a lot, so I tend to review quite a lot of books. I also have a woman's circle every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I have, I'm going to be launching a course in springtime called Sacred Woman, Sacred Life, as well as having a summer event. All of that you can find on my pages. If you follow me on Instagram, it's the goddess within _limitless. And on Facebook, I'm Genie. And well, you're already watching me here on YouTube, so you know where to find me here. I'm going to put all my links in the comments below as well. So thank you for joining me today. Wish you a very good day.